At my father-in-law's birthday dinner in Vegas, my seat was missing. My wife giggled, "Guess you're not really family." Everyone laughed. My name is Robert Harris. I'm 48 years old, and for the past 15 years, I've owned Premier Events Las Vegas, the most exclusive event management company in the city. When casino executives need a flawless product launch, when tech billionaires want their daughter's wedding to make headlines, when politicians need fundraisers that look effortless, they call me. I've orchestrated events for 3 sitting governors, planned parties in penthouses that cost more per night than most people's houses, and built a reputation where my signature on a contract is better than most people's bonds. Standing in Oriel's private dining room, looking at 11 chairs around a table that should have seated 12, I realized that none of that mattered to the Ashworth family. I met Victoria Ashworth 3 years ago at a charity gala I'd organized for the Children's Hospital of Nevada. She was elegant in that effortless way that money, old money, teaches from birth. Silk dress that probably cost more than most cars, but worn like it was from Target. Hair swept up in a chignon that looked casual but had probably taken an hour to perfect. When she approached me during the cocktail hour, I assumed she was another client looking to book an event. "You're the wizard behind all this," she said, gesturing to the transformed ballroom of the Bellagio. "I'm impressed. Most event planners think bigger means better. This has restraint." Coming from anyone else, it might have been a compliment. From Victoria, I sensed it was an evaluation. I passed, apparently, because she asked me to coffee the next day. The Ashworths were Las Vegas royalty of a particular vintage, the kind that traced their fortune back to legitimate business deals made when the city was still finding its footing. Victoria's grandfather had owned hotels before the corporations moved in. Her father, Charles, still carried himself like a man who'd once mattered in a city that had long since moved beyond him. They lived in a Spanish colonial mansion in the old Las Vegas Country Club area, the kind of house that whispered old money to those who understood the language. Not the flashy new money palaces on the Strip corridor, but something that suggested permanence, tradition, breeding. I should have recognized the warning signs during our courtship. The way Charles would describe my business as event services with a slight pause before the second word. How Victoria's mother, Eleanor, would ask pointed questions about my background, my family's history, whether I'd gone to university. The subtle way they'd reference people and places I'd never heard of, then look mildly surprised when I didn't catch the references. "Robert's built quite a nice little business," Eleanor would tell friends at dinner parties, the word little doing most of the work in that sentence. We married 18 months after meeting, a ceremony I planned myself because Victoria insisted no one else could understand her vision. Looking back, I think she just wanted to see if I could execute something worthy of the Ashworth name. The wedding made the society pages of the Las Vegas Review-Journal. The headline read, "Ashworth-Harris Nuptials Blend Old Vegas Elegance with Modern Sophistication." I was the modern sophistication, apparently. For 2 years, I told myself things were good. Victoria appreciated my work, even if she didn't entirely understand it. Her family accepted my presence, even if they never quite embraced it. I expanded my business, opened a second office in Phoenix, hired 12 full-time staff. Premier Events became the kind of company that other event planners studied and envied. But the comments persisted, small and sharp, like paper cuts. When I mentioned landing the contract for the governor's inauguration ball, Charles nodded and said, "Well, someone has to handle the logistics." When a profile of my company ran in Vegas Business Magazine, Eleanor observed that it was so nice when people can make careers out of party planning. The real shift came last spring when Victoria filed for divorce. Not a surprise, we'd been living like polite strangers for months, passing each other in our Summerlin house like actors who'd forgotten their lines. What surprised me was the timing. She filed 3 weeks before Charles's 70th birthday, which I was already planning. "I thought it would be better to get this started before Dad's party," she said over coffee in our kitchen, sliding the papers across the granite island like she was passing me the morning newspaper. "Less awkward for everyone if we're already in process." I nodded, signed where she indicated, and asked about the catering preferences for the birthday dinner. Victoria looked momentarily confused, as if she'd forgotten that detail. "Oh, you don't need to worry about that anymore," she said. "Dad's taking care of everything now. Family only, you understand?" I understood perfectly. I just didn't understand why she was still expecting me to organize it. 3 weeks later, I was standing in my office reviewing contracts when my assistant Maya knocked on the door. "Mrs. Harris is here," she said, though Victoria had gone back to using Ashworth months ago. "She says it's about her father's party?" Victoria entered wearing the expression she reserved for dealing with service providers. Polite but distant, like she was addressing someone through glass. "Robert, we need to go over the details for Dad's dinner. The reservation is confirmed for Saturday at Oriole, but I want to make sure everything else is perfect." I looked up from my computer. I thought Charles was handling the arrangements. Well, he is. Financially, I mean. But you know how these things work. Someone needs to coordinate with the restaurant, handle the details. You're so good at that sort of thing. There it was. The sort of thing. Not my profession, not my expertise, just something I was good at. Like being handy with home repairs, or knowing where to find good parking. "Victoria, we're divorced, or will be in 6 weeks when the papers are finalized. You can't expect me to work your family's events for free." Her laugh was light, dismissive. "Don't be dramatic, Robert. It's one dinner, and it's not like we're asking you to actually attend. Dad made the reservation himself, handled all the important parts. We just need someone to confirm the flowers, make sure the wine selection is appropriate, the little details." The little details. 15 years of building a business that handled million-dollar events, and I was being asked to confirm flowers for my ex-wife's family. For free. Because it was the sort of thing I was good at. "Fine," I said. "But this is the last time." Victoria smiled, the expression not reaching her eyes. "Of course. After Saturday, we'll be completely done with all this unpleasantness." She left a folder on my desk with the details. Oriole's private dining room, party of 12, 7-course tasting menu with wine pairings, custom floral arrangements, live pianist. The reservation was under Charles Ashworth's name, but all the coordination requests were directed to me. Total cost, $45,000. I spent the next 3 days confirming every detail personally. Called the florist to verify the white orchid arrangements Charles had specifically requested. Coordinated with Oriole's sommelier on the wine selections. Arranged for Marcus Giovanni, Las Vegas's most sought-after jazz pianist, to perform during dinner. Even organized transportation. 3 black cars to ferry the family from the Ashworth house to the restaurant and back. The night before the dinner, I was reviewing the final timeline when I realized something. There was no credit card on file for the event. The reservation showed Charles Ashworth as the host, but no payment method had been provided. When I called Oriole, the manager explained that they'd been told payment would be handled on arrival. I spent an hour on the phone with my accounting department, checking our records. Every vendor payment, every deposit, every service fee had been charged to Premier Events' business account. Not Charles's personal account, not the Ashworth family account, mine. $45,000 of my company's money, paying for a birthday dinner where I wasn't even welcome to sit down. I called Victoria. No answer. Called Charles. Straight to voicemail. I sat in my office until past midnight, staring at the invoices, trying to understand how I'd missed something so obvious. Then I realized I hadn't missed anything. This was the plan. Victoria knew I'd assumed Charles was paying. After all, he'd made the reservation. It was his birthday, his family event. Charles probably thought Victoria was handling payment through her ex-husband's company as some sort of divorce settlement gesture. And I, like an idiot, had coordinated everything without confirming the financial arrangements because I'd been treating it like a favor, not a business transaction. $45,000 to pay for my own humiliation. Saturday evening arrived with the kind of perfect Vegas weather that made people forget they were living in a desert. I dressed carefully, not for the dinner I wouldn't be attending, but for the conversation I planned to have afterward. Navy suit, conservative tie, the kind of outfit that projected competence and authority. If I was going to have a difficult conversation with the Ashworth family, I wanted to look like someone who knew the value of money. At 6 o'clock, I drove to Aureole to conduct a final walkthrough. The private dining room looked perfect. 11 place settings arranged around a circular table, white orchid centerpieces, exactly as Charles had requested, wine glasses polished to mirrors. Marcus was already at the piano, running through his repertoire of jazz standards. "Everything looks beautiful, Mr. Harris," said James, the restaurant manager. "Your usual attention to detail. Should I expect you'll be joining the party this evening?" "No," I said, adjusting one of the orchid arrangements unnecessarily, just making sure everything's perfect for the family. At 7 o'clock, I positioned myself in the bar area with a clear view of the dining room entrance. The Ashworth family arrived precisely on time, dressed like they were attending a royal wedding. Charles wore a bespoke tuxedo that probably cost more than most people's monthly salaries. Eleanor was resplendent in pearls and navy silk. Victoria looked stunning in a way that reminded me why I had fallen in love with her, and made me grateful I was falling out of it. They swept through the restaurant with the kind of presence that old money teaches, not demanding attention but somehow commanding it anyway. I watched them greet James, saw Charles gesture expansively at the private dining room, as if he'd personally supervised every detail. I finished my drink and left. I had work to do. 20 minutes later, I was back in my office, laptop open, phone in hand. Maya had gone home hours ago, leaving me alone with the building's evening silence and a very specific set of tasks. First call, Aureole's catering manager. "Sarah, it's Robert Harris. I need to discuss the Ashworth party billing. There's been a confusion about payment authorization." "Yes, I realize they're already seated." "No, I understand this is unusual, but I need to clarify something important." The conversation took 12 minutes. By the end, Sarah understood that Premier Events would not be covering the evening's charges, and that the Ashworth family would need to provide their own payment method. She was professional but concerned. This wasn't the kind of problem that arose at Aureole. Second call, Marcus Giovanni, the pianist. "Marcus, Robert Harris, I need you to wrap up your set at the Ashworth table and leave. Cancel the rest of the evening. Yes, I know it's unusual. You'll still receive your full fee, but your services are no longer needed." Third call, the transportation company. "This is Robert Harris with Premier Events. I need to cancel the return rides for the Ashworth party tonight, immediately. Yes, they'll need to arrange their own transportation home." Fourth call, the Bellagio, where I'd booked rooms for Charles and Eleanor, who were visiting from their winter home in Palm Springs. "I need to cancel the Ashworth reservation for tonight. Room 2847. No, this is immediate. They'll need to make other arrangements." Fifth call, Southwest Airlines, where I'd booked Charles and Eleanor's return flights to Palm Springs for tomorrow morning. "I need to cancel 2 tickets. Ashworth, Charles, and Eleanor. Yes, I understand the change fees. I'll accept them." By 8:30, I was done. The Ashworth family was sitting in Aureole's private dining room, probably just finishing their appetizers, completely unaware that in the next 30 minutes their evening would become very interesting. I poured myself a scotch from the bottle I kept in my office desk, Macallan 18, a gift from a grateful client, and waited for my phone to ring. The first call came at 9:15 p.m. Victoria's number on my caller ID. I let it go to voicemail. The second call came at 9:18. Charles's number this time? Voicemail again. At 9:22, Victoria called back. I answered on the fourth ring. "Robert?" Her voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the edge of panic underneath. "We need to talk." "I'm listening." "The restaurant is saying there's a problem with payment. They're saying you canceled some sort of guarantee." "What's going on?" "I corrected a misunderstanding," I said, swirling the scotch in my glass. "They were under the impression that Premier Events was covering tonight's charges." "Well, aren't you? I mean, isn't that... Didn't we arrange?" She trailed off, and I could almost see her trying to reconstruct exactly what had been arranged, and by whom. Victoria, I've been thinking about our conversation last week. You said Charles was taking care of everything financially, that someone just needed to handle the little details. I handled the details. Charles can handle the finances. Robert, don't be ridiculous. You can't just... Actually, I can. I'm not family, remember? Just someone who's good at coordinating the little things. The line went quiet. In the background, I could hear the murmur of conversation. Probably the family huddled around her phone, trying to understand what was happening. How much is the bill? She asked finally. $45,000, plus 20% service charge. The wine pairings were particularly expensive. Charles did request the 1996 Chateau d'Yquem for dessert. Another silence. Longer this time. Robert, we need to discuss this reasonably. Come to the restaurant. We can work this out. I don't think so. You made it clear I'm not welcome at family dinners. I'm respecting that boundary. This is insane. You can't just... Victoria, I interrupted, keeping my voice level. 3 years ago, when we got married, your father made a toast. He said the Ashworth family was gaining not just a son-in-law, but a valuable connection to Las Vegas's hospitality industry. He was right about the valuable connection part. Unfortunately, you've decided I'm not family anymore, so the connection is severed. I ended the call and turned off my phone. At 9:35, Maya's personal cell phone rang. I'd given her the evening off, but I knew the Ashworths had her number from previous event coordination. Mr. Harris? Maya's voice was confused when I answered. I'm sorry to bother you, but Ms. Ashworth just called me. She's asking about payment arrangements for tonight's dinner. She seemed upset. Maya, you're not working tonight. Don't worry about it. I'll handle any client communications on Monday. She mentioned something about transportation, too. And hotel rooms being canceled. All taken care of. Enjoy your Saturday night. I hung up and poured another scotch. Outside my office window, the strip was alive with its usual neon chaos. Somewhere out there, the Ashworth family was discovering what it felt like to be ordinary people dealing with a restaurant bill they couldn't afford. At 10:15, my office landline rang. The caller ID showed Oriel's number. Mr. Harris, this is James at Oriel. I'm calling about the Ashworth party. I assumed you might be. Sir, we have a situation. The family is unable to provide payment for this evening's charges. They're requesting that we contact you directly about covering the bill. I see. And what did you tell them? I explained that our records show you specifically canceled Premier Events' payment guarantee this evening. They seem surprised by this information. I almost smiled. I imagine they are. Mr. Harris, I need to ask, is Premier Events taking responsibility for tonight's charges or not? Because if not, I need to discuss alternative arrangements with the family. James, let me be very clear. Premier Events has no financial obligation for tonight's dinner. The Ashworth family will need to handle payment themselves. I understand. Thank you for clarifying. At 10:45, my phone rang again. This time it was Eleanor's number, Charles's wife, Victoria's mother. I answered out of curiosity. Robert? Her voice was ice cold, every syllable precisely enunciated. This behavior is beneath you. Mrs. Ashworth, how's dinner? You know exactly how dinner is. This vindictive little display is unworthy of a man in your position. I'm confused. What's vindictive about expecting payment for services rendered? Don't play dumb, Robert. You coordinated this entire evening knowing full well that Charles expected you to handle the arrangements as part of your settlement obligations. Settlement obligations. Interesting way to describe doing free work for people who'd made it clear I wasn't welcome in their family. Mrs. Ashworth, I don't have any settlement obligations that include paying for birthday parties. If Charles expected me to cover tonight's expenses, perhaps he should have mentioned that when he made the reservation. This is extortion. This is business. Something your family seems to have forgotten how to conduct. The line went dead. At 11:20 p.m., I received a text from Victoria. Dad's trying to reach his bank? This is embarrassing for everyone. Please come to the restaurant so we can resolve this quietly. I didn't respond. At 11:35, another text. The manager is being very patient, but other diners are starting to notice. You're humiliating my father on his birthday. I turned off my phone and decided to drive by Oriole to see how things were progressing. The valet parking area was busy for a Saturday night. Ferraris and Bentleys lined up like expensive jewelry in a showcase. I parked across the street and walked to where I could see through the restaurant's main windows. Through the glass, I could see the Ashworth family clustered around their table in what appeared to be an intense discussion. Charles was on his phone, his face flushed red. Eleanor sat rigidly upright, her jaw set in a way that suggested barely controlled fury. Victoria paced nearby, her own phone pressed to her ear. James, the restaurant manager, hovered diplomatically at the edge of the scene, probably calculating how long he could let this continue before it became disruptive to other diners. I watched Charles end his phone call and shake his head at the family. Whatever conversation he'd just had hadn't gone well. Eleanor's expression tightened further. Victoria stopped pacing and sat down heavily in her chair. That's when I saw Charles stand up and begin walking purposefully toward the restaurant's exit, followed quickly by Eleanor and then the rest of the family. They were leaving, without paying. I pulled out my phone and called James directly. James, it's Robert Harris. I'm across the street and I can see the Ashworth family heading for the exit. Yes, Mr. Harris. Mr. Ashworth just informed me they need to step outside to make some calls about payment arrangements. He assured me they'll be right back. James, they're not coming back. You might want to stop them before they reach the valet station. I watched through the window as James suddenly appeared near the restaurant's entrance, intercepting Charles just as he was about to hand his ticket to the valet attendant. Even from across the street, I could see the animated conversation that followed. More staff appeared, then hotel security. Within minutes, the entire Ashworth family was being escorted back into the restaurant while 2 security guards positioned themselves near the exit. My phone rang. Victoria again. Robert, you have to help us. Dad's having chest pains. The stress is too much. Please, just come down here and we can figure this out. I could hear the desperation in her voice now, all pretense of aristocratic composure gone. Victoria, your father is having chest pains because he just tried to dine and dash on a $45,000 dinner bill. That's not stress, that's guilt. We'll pay you back. With interest. Whatever you want. Just please cover tonight and we'll work out payment terms. I'm not a bank, Victoria. I'm just someone who's good at handling the little details, remember? At midnight, I decided to go home. The Ashworth family was still in the restaurant, still trying to resolve their payment problem. I'd done what I came to do. I spent Sunday morning in my home office, catching up on client emails and reviewing contracts for the following week. Around noon, Maya called. Mr. Harris, have you seen the news? What news? Channel 8 just ran a story about an incident at Oriole last night. Something about a family being arrested for trying to skip out on a restaurant bill. I found the story online. The headline read, Las Vegas family arrested after attempting to leave restaurant without paying. The article was brief but specific. Charles Ashworth, 70, and several family members had been taken into custody after allegedly attempting to leave Oriole without paying for an elaborate birthday dinner. The bill reportedly exceeded $50,000. The story noted that Charles had been unable to provide valid payment and had attempted to leave the premises when confronted by restaurant management. He was currently being held pending resolution of the charges. There was no mention of me, Premier Events, or the actual circumstances that had led to the situation. Just a straightforward account of a family that had ordered an expensive dinner they couldn't afford. At 2 p.m., my phone started ringing again. Victoria, Eleanor, even people I didn't recognize, probably extended family or friends trying to coordinate some kind of response. I didn't answer any of the calls. At 4 p.m., I received a text from Victoria that was notably different in tone from her previous messages. Robert, Dad's been charged with theft of services. He's spending the night in jail. Please call me. We need to discuss this situation like adults. Like adults. The same phrase she'd used when serving me divorce papers. I found the irony satisfying. I didn't call back. Monday morning brought a parade of voicemails. Charles's attorney, Victoria's attorney, Eleanor calling to inform me that the family's reputation had been irreparably damaged and that I would be held responsible. Even a call from someone claiming to represent the Las Vegas Review-Journal, asking for comment on the Oriole incident. I deleted them all and went to work. At 10 a.m., Maya knocked on my office door. "Mr. Harris? There's a gentleman here to see you. He says he's Charles Ashworth's attorney." I looked up from the contract I was reviewing. "Send him in." Marcus Webb was exactly what you'd expect from an attorney representing old Las Vegas money. Expensive suit, silver hair, handshake that conveyed authority and disappointment in equal measure. "Mr. Harris, I represent Charles Ashworth in the matter of Saturday evening's incident at Oriole Restaurant." "I see. How can I help you?" "I think you know why I'm here. My client is facing criminal charges because of what appears to be a deliberately orchestrated situation designed to cause him maximum embarrassment and legal jeopardy." I leaned back in my chair. "Mr. Webb, your client ordered a $45,000 dinner he couldn't afford, then tried to leave without paying. I'm not sure how that's my responsibility. My client was under the impression that you would be handling payment arrangements as part of your ongoing relationship with the family. Your client was mistaken. I haven't had a relationship with the Ashworth family since my divorce from Victoria was finalized 6 weeks ago." Webb opened his briefcase and removed a folder. "Mr. Harris, I'm prepared to offer a simple resolution to this matter. Premier Events covers Saturday's charges, my client pleads to a misdemeanor with time served, and we all move forward without further complications." "No." "Excuse me?" "No. Your client's legal problems are not my business concern." Webb's professional demeanor slipped slightly. "Mr. Harris, Charles Ashworth is 70 years old. He spent Saturday night in jail because of a misunderstanding that you could resolve with one phone call." "Mr. Webb, Charles Ashworth spent Saturday night in jail because he tried to commit theft of services. The misunderstanding was his assumption that someone else would pay for his lifestyle." I stood up, indicating the meeting was over. "If there's nothing else, I have actual paying clients to attend to." Webb remained seated. "The Ashworth family has been part of Las Vegas society for 3 generations. They have friends, connections, influence. Making an enemy of them could be bad for your business." I smiled. "Mr. Webb, the Ashworth family just made headlines for being unable to pay a restaurant bill. How much influence do you think they have left?" The criminal case resolved itself within a week. Charles pleaded guilty to misdemeanor theft of services, paid a fine, and was sentenced to community service. The civil matter, Oriole's lawsuit to recover the unpaid charges, was still pending. The social fallout was more dramatic. The story had been picked up by the entertainment blogs, then the national news aggregators. Vegas aristocrat family dines and dashes became a minor internet sensation, complete with memes and social media commentary about entitled rich people getting their comeuppance. Victoria called one last time 3 weeks after the incident. "Robert, I need you to understand something. Dad mortgaged the house to pay the lawyers and settle with the restaurant. Mom's selling her jewelry. We're going to lose everything." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you? Because you don't sound sorry. You sound satisfied." I considered this. "Victoria, 3 years ago your family welcomed me because I was useful. For 3 years, I pretended not to notice that you saw me as an employee rather than family. Saturday night, I stopped pretending. We never treated you like an employee. You asked me to coordinate your father's birthday dinner for free, then didn't save me a seat at the table. What would you call that?" Silence on the line. "Victoria, your family spent decades building a reputation based on having money and status you apparently no longer possess. That's not my fault. That's just life catching up with reality. I loved you. she said quietly. Maybe you did, but not enough to treat me like family when it mattered. I hung up and went back to work. 6 months later, I was planning a corporate retreat for a tech company when Maya knocked on my office door. Mr. Harris? You have a call from Eleanor Ashworth. I looked up, surprised. I hadn't heard from any of the Ashworths since Victoria's final call. Put her through. Eleanor's voice was different, smaller somehow, less imperious. Robert, I'm calling because we need your services. I'm listening. Charles passed away last week, heart attack. We're planning a memorial service and, well, the family doesn't know anyone else who can handle this kind of event properly. I leaned back in my chair, processing this information. Charles was dead. The man who'd never considered me family, who'd tried to dine and dash on his birthday dinner, was gone. Eleanor, I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. Will you help us? I thought about it. The professional response would be yes. Death was the ultimate equalizer, and holding grudges against widows was bad business. The personal response was more complicated. Eleanor, I'll need payment in advance. Full amount? Non-refundable. Given our history, I'm sure you understand. Of course, whatever you think is appropriate. I'll have Maya send you a contract. Standard rates, no family discount. That's fine. After I hung up, I sat in my office thinking about Charles Ashworth. He'd died owing money to restaurants, lawyers, and probably half the tradespeople in Las Vegas. But in the end, his family had called me to handle his memorial service, because regardless of what they thought of me personally, they knew I was the only one who could do it right. I opened a new file on my computer and began planning what would be Charles Ashworth's final event. It would be perfect, elegant, and memorable. Everything a man of his aspirations would have wanted. And he would never know that the person he'd refused to consider family was the one who made sure he was remembered properly. Sometimes, I thought, that's as close to justice as you get in this business. You do the job, you do it well, and you let the work speak for itself. The rest is just details.